got two incredible targets for a knockoff here from that Incineroar as well. Either getting rid of the Flame Orb on the Ursaluna or just dealing so much damage to that Lunala, 4 times super effective damage to that Pokemon. The Zamazenta will be the first Pokemon to terrestrialize here. It is going to be pure water typing, removing that weakness to the ground type attacks from the Ursaluna. Maybe a little bit of a hint about Marco's targeting there if he's not that worried about that.
Yeah, this is super high value terrestrialization potentially for this Ursaluna as well. It does have to be careful for the dark type attack from Incineroar, but on the flip side now, immune to a body press and immune to a fake out.
Immune to body press, immune to fake out, now weak to knockoff. Here's the heavy slam from Zamazenta into Lunala, going to break a little bit of the damage, and the knockoff, it's enough! The heavy slam plus the knockoff, a critical hit, knocks out the Lunala, and Marco is right back in this. This Ursaluna, though, still has something to say. It's gonna fire off a headlong rush into the Incineroar, and it hangs on.
This Ogerpon could do a lot of interesting things. The threat of Follow Me makes it a little bit harder to click that Encore button, and if it wanted to, it could do a bunch of damage here, potentially either knocking out a Whimsicott or at least breaking the Shadow Shield of this Lunala. Of course, the danger of that is if you do knock out the Whimsicott, it uses a Tailwind, maybe you wind up in a situation where your opponent gets a bunch of momentum, getting the full turns of the Tailwind to try to take advantage, and also props for that Whimsicott at all. Typically, when you see it, usually used in the front, so having it back there may have been a little unexpected.
Yeah, back Whimsicott is not something we are used to seeing at all, but here's the Tailwind making the Lunala the fastest thing on the field, and that's a Moongeist beam going straight into the Ogerpon, but Marco did not fall for the Encore trap. Just going to go ahead and break the Shadow Shield on Lunala with that heavy slam, while Ivy Cudgel will pick up that easy KO on Whimsicott and give Marco Silva an early Pokemon lead.
Every option is available here where I think either Pokemon could feasibly switch out, could feasibly protect. We'll have to see what call these players are making. They told us this is going to be a matchup that was very based on making the right calls, and here's a really critical one in game 1.
Yeah, I think we're about to see some of that volatility right away. Terrestrialization used for the Calyrex on Marco Silva's side. Ogerpon says, look at me, I want to take these surging strikes, and it will only take 2 to knock that Pokemon out. But now, the Calyrex is a dark type, meaning that it will take resisted damage from any ghost type attacks from the Lunala. Lunala does have the option of going for the Moonblast as well instead of the Moongeist Beam, and that's exactly what Federico calls, and that's exactly what Federico gets, and is never punished. Psychic into the Urshifu will pick up the KO on that Pokemon, meaning that Marco will be able to protect the Calyrex next turn. That is a huge Pokemon off the field, and now both players are down to their final 2 Pokemon, and the way this works out, that means Marco will have terrain control. Calyrex is the fastest Pokemon on the field with the Tailwind ending, and now we're on a situation of wide guard or not.
Yeah, always fun to have to predict it, and the Calyrex protecting in the last turn. Sometimes you just want to protect the wide guard here, but going to have to make a read. Also keep on, you mentioned the Grassy Glide from the Ogerpon before, but Rillaboom can do that too. So even though it's naturally the slowest Pokemon in the field, has the option of attacking first, although we'll have to see if anything's weakened enough for that to be relevant.
Here's the wide guard. Did Marco go for it, or just the single target? The Astral Barrage! Federico gets it right! No damage to either the Miraidon or the Lunala from that Astral Barrage. Can this Rillaboom make anything happen? There was no Dazzling Gleam, or there was no Grassy Glide. Dazzling Gleam picks up the KO onto Calyrex, and Rillaboom takes a little bit of a chunk. But this is going to be so hard for the Great Ape to break through. Miraidon, even though it's at such low health, will go down to this Wood Hammer, and the Lunala, however, has that Electric Seed boost to stall out this Rillaboom. That's Miraidon and Lunala, this time facing down the Rillaboom and the Zamazenta immediately. So again, Marco will win the terrain war here. Rillaboom is able to set that up and already immediately has fake out pressure on Miraidon.
Yeah, the deviation from the first game is Rillaboom's out here instead of the Calyrex. I do thanks to Marco's advantage, able to kind of keep a step ahead here. Fake out coming out immediately, going to stop Miraidon from acting, leaving Zamazenta for a pretty excellent opportunity here.
There's another body press into the Miraidon. That is something that Marco has been doing over and over again, targeting down that Miraidon, but that means Zamazenta is open to a Moongeist Beam. Deals a decent amount of damage back to the Zamazenta, and this Miraidon with the combo of Fake Out plus the Body Press may just be in Grassy Glide range.
Yeah, this is a pretty scary situation now for Federico's side of the field. Really can't afford to lose this Miraidon for nothing. It is the most powerful offensive Pokemon on his team, and see the difference with Marco being able to lead Rillaboom, such a critical Pokemon in this matchup.
All right, Federico is showing that he wants to go back to the Trick Room mode. No Grassy Glide, just a raw Draco Meteor into the Rillaboom. Assault Vest doing so much work for Rillaboom as Zamazenta now picks up the KO with that body press. This Calyrex now is vulnerable. You could either go for a double protect or a switch, but if you do, without doing either of those, you are leaving that Pokemon open to an attack from the Ursaluna or the Lunala.
The Grassy Terrain also could matter here because normally would have been reducing the damage of that Earthquake, right?
Yeah.
Where suddenly it's also getting a little bit scarier here.
Yeah, the Earthquake always an option here without the Grassy Terrain. Marco will retreat the Calyrex to preserve it for once Trick Room ends after this turn. The only way to ensure that that Calyrex is 100% safe was to do this. Switch the Ogerpon in instead and tank this headlong rush from Ursaluna, and it survives! Single-digit health for sure on that Ogerpon, but that's all you need. One hit point is it. Ursaluna is going to take that Grassy Glide without priority as Lunala fires back with the Moongeist Beam. That's going to connect onto Rillaboom, and it survives! Both the Rillaboom and the Ogerpon on single-digit health here.
Now that Federico's down to 2 Pokemon, Incineroar's going to have to come out here, only going to have 1 more Intimidate. There's some options on Marco's side of the field, right? A little dangerous to try to rotate too much, but with that Incineroar currently on the field, you could get it in and out of battle. And Tim to be very effective with both of these Pokemon. Only physical attackers remaining on Federico's side of the field.
Yeah, and this Zamazenta will easily be able to pick up a KO on that Incineroar with a body press of its own, which means that Federico either has to trade the Incineroar for damage onto Marco's Incineroar or Rillaboom, or go for the fake out and leave up that slot open. But Marco is going to go ahead and switch out the Incineroar, wants to make sure that he can get a second Intimidate down. Regardless, that means Rillaboom is now out on the field. The Grassy Terrain is back out on the field, so all of these Pokemon are going to start healing right back up, and Marco protects the Zamazenta. Not going to take any damage this turn, not going to be flinched by the fake out, but that's all right for Federico. All he wants is a big damage, but the Facade also targeting into the Zamazenta, so Rillaboom gets in for free, and that means Marco is in such a good position here to cycle these Intimidates.
Yeah, devastating position. A lot of great options for Marco's side of the field. You also can kind of just trade attacks here if you want to. Incineroar now just being pinned by the body press, a Wood Hammer potentially going to the other slot. Federico realizes, like, hey, like, there is no way I'm winning this one, and we're going to see a Game 3 in the Masters Finals.